The rain drummed against the roof of my car, a relentless symphony that mirrored the turmoil within me. It was a stormy night, the kind that blurs the line between reality and the eerie unknown. The gas gauge on my dashboard hovered dangerously close to empty, and my phone showed a barren landscape with no signal. As the engine sputtered, I caught sight of a dilapidated sign emerging from the shadows, the Silent Rest Motel. My desperation outweighed my skepticism, and I pulled into the desolate parking lot. The motel loomed before me like a forsaken relic from a forgotten era. The flickering neon sign emitted a feeble glow, spelling out vacancies with a tired buzz. I hesitated, but the relentless rain urged me to seek refuge within its weathered walls. The lobby, dimly lit and adorned with faux leather furniture that had seen better days, exuded a musty odor that clung to the air. A solitary figure, the motel clerk, peered up from a dated newspaper. His gaze, cold and vacant, met mine. "Room for the night," he croaked, his voice a raspy echo of years long gone. I nodded, avoiding eye contact as I handed over a crumpled bill. The clerk slid a key across the counter, room 13. A number that felt heavy with unspoken stories. As I navigated the narrow corridor, the carpet underfoot squished with an unsettling dampness. The flickering lights overhead cast fleeting shadows, and the scent of mildew lingered. Room 13 stood at the far end, its door slightly ajar as if whispering an invitation. Upon entering, the musty scent intensified, and the dim light struggled to penetrate the gloom. The furnishings, a mishmash of outdated decor, seemed to groan beneath the weight of forgotten tales. I tried to shake off the discomfort, attributing it to the wear and tear of a neglected motel. The rain outside transformed into a relentless downpour, the rhythmic tapping on the window conspiring with the creaks and groans of the aging structure. Sleep proved elusive, the silence of the motel was an eerie void interrupted only by the storm's lullaby. As the night wore on, I became acutely aware of an irregular sound, a distant murmur, like a conversation carried by the wind. It seeped through the walls, echoing through the empty corridors. Torn between curiosity and trepidation, I stepped out into the hallway, my footsteps silenced by the plush, worn-out carpet. Room 12, next to mine, seemed to emit hushed voices that danced just beyond the threshold of understanding. The flickering light above its door cast distorted shadows, adding to the surreal atmosphere. I pressed my ear against the cold metal, straining to decipher the ghostly whispers that slipped through the cracks. "Please, no more," a faint voice pleaded, drowned by the echo of a somber laughter that seemed to linger in the stagnant air. I recoiled, my pulse quickening. The murmurings defied reason, the rooms were supposed to be vacant. The motel was a desolate outpost in the storm, a place where only the echoes of forgotten travelers should persist. Driven by a force I couldn't comprehend, I followed the haunting sounds. They led me down the corridor, growing louder as I approached room 12. The door, slightly ajar, revealed a room identical to mine, except, unlike mine, it was occupied. My breath caught as I witnessed a spectral scene unfold. Shadows danced in the dim light, and the air seemed to pulse with residual energy. The figures, flickering like old film reels, replayed moments from a past that defied the passage of time. A family, frozen in joyous snapshots, occupied the room. Their laughter reverberated, a bittersweet melody that seemed trapped within the worn wallpaper. A child's laughter, a mother's gentle hum, a seemingly idyllic scene that had etched its essence into the very fabric of room 12. The atmosphere grew dense, suffused with an indescribable sorrow. The laughter morphed into desperate pleas, the joy into an echoing wail that reverberated through the room. The family, forever encapsulated in a moment of happiness, had become prisoners of a spectral loop. Unable to tear my gaze away, I watched the scene replay, the tragedy unfolding in a haunting crescendo. The specters seemed oblivious to my presence, lost in a purgatory that echoed with the heartbreak of another era. As the night wore on, I retreated to my room, the spectral murmurs still lingering in the air. Sleep remained elusive, my mind haunted by the inexplicable events that had unfolded within the Silent Rest Motel. As dawn painted the sky in muted hues, I fled the motel, the rain now a gentle drizzle. The neon sign, still flickering with its spectral glow, seemed to bid me farewell. The road stretched before me, winding through a landscape that held secrets within its folds. The Silent Rest Motel, a relic of forgotten times, stood as a testament to the thin veil between the tangible and the inexplicable. The events of that night left an indelible mark, a lingering unease that whispered of stories untold. The rain-soaked road bore witness to my departure, but the mysteries of room 12, and the voices trapped within, remained behind, woven into the fabric of a haunted motel that defied the rational boundaries of the living. The night hung heavy with the promise of a storm as I pulled into the nearly deserted motel parking lot. My headlights cut through the darkness, revealing a weary sign that flickered ominously, Rest Haven Motel. The once bright neon had dimmed with age, casting a sickly glow over the cracked asphalt. Tired and in desperate need of rest, I parked in front of the office, the only building that seemed to resist the pull of decay. The neon vacancy sign buzzed overhead, an invitation wrapped in an unsettling hum. Hesitation gripped me for a moment, but weariness won over caution, and I stepped out into the humid night. The bell above the door jingled as I entered, the sound piercing through the stagnant air. The lobby felt frozen in time, a snapshot from the past. Faded wallpaper clung to the walls, and a stale odor lingered in the air. An elderly man sat behind the front desk, his eyes hidden behind thick glasses. He looked up, offering a weary smile that failed to reach his tired eyes. "Evening," he rasped, his voice like the distant echoes of another era. "Room for one." I nodded, half expecting the feeble floorboards to groan beneath my weight as I approached the counter. The man handed me an old-fashioned key with a plastic tag bearing the number 7. Without a word, he gestured toward a dimly lit corridor that stretched into the motel's heart. The overhead lights buzzed and flickered as I walked the narrow corridor, passing rows of identical doors that lined the path like silent sentinels. A chill ran down my spine, a feeling that lingered in the air like a ghostly presence. Room 7 stood at the far end, its door slightly ajar as if inviting me into its enigmatic embrace. As I entered, a musty smell assaulted my senses, a mixture of dampness and forgotten memories. The room itself seemed untouched by time, frozen in a state of perpetual neglect. The faded floral bedspread clung to the mattress, and a flickering bedside lamp cast eerie shadows across the cracked walls. I tried to shake off the unease settling over me, attributing it to exhaustion and the eerie ambience of the motel. I locked the door out of habit, the metal bolt sliding into place with a metallic clink. The storm outside intensified, raindrops pelting the window like impatient whispers. Despite the weariness that draped over me like a heavy cloak, sleep eluded me. The motel seemed to come alive with the symphony of the storm, a symphony that played in discordant harmony with the creaks and groans of the aging structure. Restless, I decided to explore the motel, my footsteps muffled by the relentless rain outside. As I ventured into the corridor, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The dim light cast long shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Room 7, my temporary refuge, stood silent and foreboding. The door seemed to pulse with a strange energy, the metal cold beneath my touch. Compelled by an inexplicable force, I continued down the corridor, passing closed doors that held the secrets of countless transient souls. The flickering lights cast dancing shadows that played tricks on my imagination. A distant sound echoed through the hallway, the faint whispers of a conversation that transcended the boundaries of the living. The voices led me to the end of the corridor, where a door stood slightly ajar. Room 13, a number that defied the motel's logical sequence. Intrigued and unnerved, I pushed the door open to reveal a room identical to mine, yet frozen in a state of perpetual disarray. The air in room 13 seemed charged with a heavy energy, a presence that clung to the peeling wallpaper and faded furnishings. A flickering television illuminated the room with a ghostly glow, casting shadows that seemed to writhe in response to some unseen force. As I scanned the room, my eyes were drawn to a photograph on the nightstand. A family, smiling in happier times, frozen in a moment that had long slipped into the folds of forgotten history. The whispers in the room intensified, their words indistinct yet laden with an unmistakable sorrow. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the flickering television, plunging the room into darkness. Panic seized me, and I fumbled for the light switch, desperate to dispel the shadows that seemed to congregate around me. When the light finally returned, room 13 stood silent and still, as if the spirits that had beckoned me had retreated into the ethereal abyss. The storm outside raged on, its symphony of rain and wind merging with the echoes of the motel's mysterious past. Exhausted and unnerved, I returned to room 7, the door shutting behind me with a hollow thud. The night wore on, the storm eventually relenting, but sleep remained elusive. As dawn painted the sky in hues of muted gray, I left the Rest Haven Motel, its secrets and mysteries trailing behind me like lingering shadows. The neon vacancy sign buzzed its farewell, and I drove away, haunted by the echoes of room 13 and the whispers that lingered in the recesses of my restless mind. The Rest Haven Motel, a forgotten outpost in the vast expanse of forgotten highways, stood as a testament to the enigmatic stories that seep into the cracks of time, waiting to be unearthed by those who dare to listen. The relentless rain blurred the edges of the night as I pulled into the rundown motel, its flickering neon sign casting a sallow glow on the deserted parking lot. The unrelenting storm had driven me off the highway, and the motel emerged like a desolate oasis in the gloom. A sense of unease clung to the air, but exhaustion weighed heavier on my shoulders. The clerk behind the front desk seemed to materialize from the shadows as I entered the dimly lit lobby. His eyes, shadowed by deep lines, betrayed a weariness that transcended the late hour. A mumbled exchange led to the passing of a tarnished key, and room 6 became my refuge for the night. The corridor, dimly lit by sporadically flickering bulbs, echoed with the hollow sounds of my footsteps. The air within was stale, carrying the scent of decades-old cigarette smoke and fleeting dreams. Room 6 loomed ahead, its door slightly ajar as if reluctant to reveal the secrets within. Upon entering, a chill seized me. The room held a stillness that seemed unnatural. The faded floral wallpaper peeled away in places, revealing the motel's neglected history. The air was heavy, and the sparse furnishings bore the scars of time. I shook off the discomfort, attributing it to the wear and tear of a place seemingly forgotten by progress. As I unpacked my meager belongings, the storm outside intensified, rain pelting the window like impatient fingertips. The symphony of water droplets merged with the rhythmic hum of the aging air conditioner. Exhaustion began to claim me, and I nestled under the worn blanket, succumbing to the lullaby of the storm. It was the distant sound that roused me from uneasy slumber, an indistinct murmur that slithered through the walls. My bleary eyes sought the dim light filtering through the tattered curtains, the room cloaked in shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. Curiosity battled with apprehension as I stepped into the corridor. The source of the whispering eluded me, the disembodied voices echoing through the narrow passage. I followed the elusive sounds, each step intensifying the eerie ambience that clung to the motel's walls. Room 7, next to mine, emanated a subtle glow beneath its door. The muffled voices grew more distinct, their cadence resembling a conversation trapped in time. As I pressed my ear against the cold metal, the words began to crystallize, a haunting exchange that seemed to defy the solitude of the night. "I told you we shouldn't have come here," a voice pleaded, the desperation palpable. Another voice, colder and detached, retorted, "We had no choice. It's the only way." A shiver traced my spine as the realization settled, an unseen drama unfolding within the confinements of room 7. The voices seemed anchored to a past that refused to fade away, each word etched into the motel's history like an indelible scar. Compelled by an inexplicable force, I knocked softly on room 7, the echo reverberating through the hushed corridor. The voices fell silent, and an unsettling stillness followed. No response came from behind the door, and a chill clung to the air like a spectral presence. With hesitant resolve, I turned the knob. Room 7 lay before me, seemingly identical to mine, yet the atmosphere within was laden with a profound weight. The air shimmered with residual energy, and the room seemed to breathe with the memories of its ghostly inhabitants. The furniture, draped in dusty sheets, bore the essence of another era. Flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls, revealing an abandoned séance in progress. A dusty Ouija board, its planchette frozen mid-glide, hinted at an attempt to commune with forces beyond the veil. The air grew thick with the whispers of the past. The voices, now shadows of their former selves, replayed fragments of a tragic conversation, a desperate plea for understanding, an ominous decision that had sealed an unseen fate. As I stood in the room frozen in time, the temperature dropped, and the flickering candles cast elongated shadows that seemed to reach for me. A spectral coldness wrapped around me, an embrace of lingering sorrow that transcended the temporal realm. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the flickering candles, plunging the room into darkness. Panic seized me as the shadows morphed and contorted, their dance becoming a haunting symphony. In the oppressive silence, the air vibrated with an otherworldly energy that left me paralyzed with fear. When the lights flickered back to life, room 7 stood silent and empty. The echoes of the past had retreated, leaving me alone in a space that seemed untouched by the passage of time. The storm outside raged on, its intensity matching the turmoil within me. As I stepped back into the corridor, the whispers had ceased. Room 7, once a vessel for spectral voices, had returned to its dormant state. I retreated to the solitude of my room, the rain outside providing a somber soundtrack to the mysteries that lingered within the motel's aging walls. Dawn broke, and the storm began to relent. I left the Silent Rest Motel, the neon sign buzzing its farewell. The road stretched before me, winding through a landscape that held its secrets close. The motel, a temporary refuge in the heart of the storm, stood as a testament to the thin veil between the tangible and the inexplicable. The voices of Room 7 lingered in my memory, an ethereal chorus that defied explanation. As I drove away, the rain-soaked road carried me into the waking world, leaving the Silent Rest Motel behind, a place where the whispers of the past intermingled with the storm's melancholy cadence.